Governments are staffed by highly educated experts and backed by massive institutional power, yet they consistently produce policies that misfire or stall. When we evaluate these failures, our default instinct is to use the normative approach. We judge policy based on values: justice, equality, and public welfare. The normative approach focuses on what a policy ought to be. As this diagram illustrates, it assumes statecraft is a straight line. You identify a societal problem, and the government deploys a solution. But applied political science requires the descriptive approach. Instead of ideals, we examine the messy reality inside the state machinery. Real-world policymaking rarely survives that straight line. Solutions are distorted by competing actors and constrained budgets. The path becomes a chaotic network of dead ends and looping compromises. To understand why policies mutate or fail, intuition is useless. We have to isolate the variables that drive government behavior using specific theoretical frameworks. We will use 3 foundational models as our analytical toolkit: rational choice theory, public choice theory, and system theory. These frameworks map the actual mechanics of statecraft, distinguishing deliberate structural features from random outcomes or misfortune. We begin with rational choice theory. This serves as the theoretical baseline, treating policymaking strictly as an exercise in logical optimization. The core assumption here is that actors make decisions mathematically. This visual demonstrates how they weigh the precise costs of an action against its potential benefits, striving to maximize overall utility. Consider a scenario where a state has constrained capital and must choose between competing infrastructure projects. The rational model dictates a clear path. The state allocates its limited funds to the project that mathematically benefits the largest demographic, while starving the less efficient option. This model operates on the premise that the state acts as a perfectly logical, unified calculator. Rational choice provides a necessary baseline for optimization, but it fails to account for human nature. To understand actual state behavior, we need a realistic behavioral lens. That brings us to public choice theory, which introduces a critical behavioral caveat to how the state operates. This model views the state as an assembly of individual politicians and bureaucrats, none of whom function as purely altruistic agents. These actors are utility-maximizing humans. They apply the exact same cost-benefit calculus, but to their own personal self-interest. Look at a politician's incentive. Their primary objective is electoral survival. This means prioritizing immediate, highly visible actions over long-term public welfare. This explains why a politician might greenlight a mathematically suboptimal welfare scheme right before an election to maximize votes. The unelected official operates on a different set of incentives. Bureaucrats optimize for institutional power and administrative convenience. An official might advocate for policies that expand their department's budget or ease their administrative burden, regardless of how inefficient those policies are for the broader public. Government inefficiency is rarely an accident. Under this actor-based approach, it is a mathematical feature of a system where individuals optimize for professional survival. While these individual models explain internal behavior, they do not capture the full structural reality of how governance interacts with society at large. We scale up to system theory, framing public policy as a living, cybernetic architecture. This places individual actors inside a strict processing system. The architecture begins with inputs. These are the raw materials, public demands, complaints, and the economic pressures driving society. These inputs flow into the process phase. This is the institutional machinery, the parliaments, the executive agencies, and the courts that digest societal demands. What emerges on the other side are outputs. These are the formalized rules, laws, and government programs deployed back into society. But the architecture doesn't stop at the output. It relies on a critical mechanism: feedback. Society's reaction to a policy, whether satisfaction or anger, immediately becomes a new input. This forces the process to iterate, adjusting the policy based on the response. There is a major complication to this loop. Governance operates strictly as an open system. The entire loop is continuously distorted by exogenous shocks. International events, macroeconomic shifts, and climate change exert constant pressure on the machinery, altering how inputs are processed. Ultimately, the policy process functions as an endlessly iterating loop, which is constantly reshaped by environmental pressure and societal reaction. Synthesizing these three theories into a single framework provides the high-fidelity resolution necessary to evaluate governance. Here, the complete architecture becomes visible. The systemic process phase is not a sterile machine. It is a theater populated by self-interested actors, all utilizing cost-benefit mathematics to navigate their careers. When these actors deploy a policy, the open system creates interconnected dangers. Take a single vector change, like the rollout of a new education policy. Altering one node inside this open system creates irreversible, cascading effects. A shift in education instantly ripples across entirely different sectors, altering employment, the broader economy, and social mobility. Because every sector is interconnected, no single theory explains everything. Policymakers must constantly toggle between these analytical lenses to anticipate how a system will react. Combining normative goals, behavioral realities, and systemic feedback provides the rigorous model needed to evaluate how governance actually functions.